Welcome to Zoom O'Clock with your host, Tessy, Antony de Nassau. This podcast brings you enlightening discussions with leading experts and public figures directly to your ears.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zoom O'Clock with your host, Tessy, Antony de Nassau. Today, I have a very, very interesting topic for you, as always, and a topic that has been on my mind since a long time, a topic that my ex-husband was pursuing as well for quite a while, and a topic that we are all confronted in some way or another in our daily lives. I am talking about bugs. So today, I have the great pleasure to introduce Thomas Constant from the UK, a young British entrepreneur who designed growing pots to help combat climate change. Growing pots where the bugs are inside. Let me talk to you about BeoBia, the company I'm referring to. They are the future of sustainable pet food. BeoBia means food for life in Irish Gaelic. The meaning embodies our belief that we can produce sustainable resources without compromising our planet. They manufacture eco-growing pots for people's homes. Their growing pots harness insect power to recycle users' food waste and convert it into pet food and plant fertilizer, empowering people to create their own source of affordable and sustainable pet food. Hi, Thomas. Good morning.
Good morning, Tessy. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. How are you and where are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm calling you from the rainy UK right now, England.
Fantastic. Rainy UK, as always, right?
Yes.
Fantastic. As they say, there is no bad weather. There's just bad clothing. So,
well said.
So, dear Thomas, your topic is so intriguing, and I was really looking forward to this podcast because it is a topic that has been in my family, or at least been talked to in my family for quite a while through my ex-husband as well. And let me start off the questioning to you. How did you get to the idea of bugs for food as a food source? And was it always something that you were considering for pets? Or were you also considering it as a human complement to our diet? Up to you.
Yeah, great question. So, yeah, the idea has changed over the past few years, but yeah, I'll start from the beginning. So, as you said, I'm Thomas, founder of BeoBia, and my background is as an industrial designer. But before that, as a young kid, I was always interested in nature. I grew up in the middle of the countryside in the UK, had loads of interesting pets growing up, loved being outside, looking under rocks, understanding creatures, looking at insects, all of that jazz. And as I kind of grew up, my kind of desire and my passion for sustainability grew. But then I also got more interested into design and technology. And so it was actually in my final year, back when I was studying industrial design and technology at uni back in 2017, where I came up with this concept of a pod that lets people grow insects. But the idea really started with trying to seeing all global issues were happening. And I was like, wow, protein production is an increasingly important issue, especially with the rising of the middle class in countries like India and China. So it's like, wow, this is a serious issue. What problems are being what problems are being developed to address this? And I was researching. I was like, wow, there's loads of great innovation happening around, lab-grown meat, plant-based insects. I was like, wow, these are all fantastic. But what solutions can actually be condensed down into a household product? And I was like, wow, insects are a great solution and have the ability to be actually condensed into a small growing pod that can be placed in someone's house. I mean, and just to speak about insects for a second, insects, you might know a little bit about them. They require a fraction of the land, water, and resources compared to traditional livestock. And what's really neat is they can be grown in your house by eating your uneaten fruit and veg. So it's a really nice, closed loop system that can be placed in anyone's home. So I essentially designed this growing pod, and it won some awards. and then I wanted to commercialize it. I was like, okay, let's try and get some traction. Let's get some customers. So we launched on a crowdfunding platform called Kickstarter last year. It was fully funded in 7 hours. Yeah, and we have hundreds of customers all over the world, mainly in Western Europe and North America. But one of the interesting things we found out about that was, even though we were marketing it as a alternative way to an alternative protein, a lot of people who are buying it weren't actually buying it to grow insects for themselves. They're actually growing it to grow insects for their pets. So, like, there's a range of pets, including like reptiles, amphibians, fish, birds, chickens. All these pets that eat insects. So our pods are currently being used by a range of these customers to make an affordable, sustainable, and nutritious source of protein. So earlier this year, we then pivoted into this new segment. But it's been a really interesting journey, and that's kind of like, broad strokes understanding of the past few years. But it's been a fun journey the past 2 years.
Wow, that sounds so interesting. And yeah, it makes totally sense that if you are a chicken grower, for example, and people more and more want to have organic food where they know that the animals which we are consuming, that they have been bred properly and have had proper food, and not just these flowers and these weird pesticides and chemicals in it. So tell us a bit about the bugs specifically. So which kinds of bugs are we talking about? Because not everyone actually is familiar with this topic. So is it more worms? And also, I personally have eaten bugs before. You can buy them already in certain shops, also here in Zurich. And it's a very nice complement to a salad because they're a bit nutty tasting. So it's a fun thing. And sometimes I don't tell the kids as well. And then we laugh a little bit because it's really just the eye that makes you feel a bit funny about it. But the taste is actually quite delicious. So tell us a bit about the bugs themselves and the pods, because the YouTube listeners, and they can maybe see your hands when you show the size of the pod or something like that, or when we look you up. But for someone listening to it on the earphones, tell us a little bit, what are we to expect? And also protein-wise, what is the benefit of the bug protein versus another source of protein, such as meat, cows and chickens and so on? How does that complement in terms of the value of the protein?
Great question. Yeah. So ultimately, every bug is a bit different. So they have different life cycles. So our growing pods are based around the mealworm's life cycle. So the mealworm, actually, it's not actually a worm. It's a beetle larvae. So it's based around kind of the whole cycle of, like, you start off with an egg. It develops into a mealworm, the thing you or your pets eat. And then some of them develop back into pupa, which is kind of the chrysalis kind of caterpillar stage. And then they can turn back into beetles. So there's kind of 4 different sections of their life cycle and our pods basically kind of passively stagger that. So when these insects are kind of, if you cook them, they're over 50%, almost 55% protein. So really, really high protein content. And comparing that to some sorts of, comparing that to traditional livestock, beef, cow, chicken, an average kind of beef is around 20% protein. So they're really, really nutritionally dense. They have amino acids. They have all non-essential amino acids. And because you're eating the whole kind of insect part of them, you have the micronutrients from their exoskeleton. So they're really packed full of kind of all the good stuff for human development. And the pods themselves. So yeah, ultimately, because I guess it's very abstract. I'm sure your listeners will be thinking an insect pod is like, what the hell is this? What's going on? Some sort of crazy futuristic thing that sits in the corner. But basically, these are made up of 5 trays. These trays are made from recycled, currently right now, they're British plastic, so recycled British plastic, and they're biodegradable. But these pods basically, they're shallow, hexagonal shaped trays that sit on top of each other. And they're very small, they're the size of a microwave, a large microwave. And yeah, so they can be placed anywhere in a user's house. And ultimately, every couple of days, you can put your uneaten fruit and veg. So let's say you have some apples or potato peelings that are you're not eating. You can put those into the pods. The insects will eat that. And then after several weeks, you'll have insects that are ready to harvest. And you can feed these directly to your pets, or if you're feeling more adventurous, you can eat them yourself. Like you said, they're extremely tasty. They're versatile. But yeah, they're just a really nice way that someone can, quite a nice, easy way someone can live a more self-sufficient lifestyle in an urban area. And that's one of the key things we're kind of finding that a lot of people in Europe, especially young people like 13 to 35, are getting they're more passionate about the environment. They want to reduce their carbon emissions. They want they want more ecological hobbies. If you're in the center of as you are Zurich, you're quite constrained with what you can do. You might not have a garden, or you might not have enough space. So outside of growing a greenhouse, these pods allow people to have that little bit of extra self-sufficiency in their life.
Mm-hmm. Wow, interesting. So you deliver them kind of like, if you could imagine, because that, I know people know about that, when you order like a butterfly kit for your children, you get kind of like a bag with like the eggs in it, and then you grow them, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. I will definitely look into that for the kids over the summer. That would be a cool program to do with them.
Yeah.
We'll see. But I would definitely love doing that. So tell me, how was that received in the UK? Because in the Western world, we are not so in use of eating bugs as well. You say it's very prominent for the pets, but also just as part of the conversation and your research, how has it been received with human beings? I know well that in South America, for example, or in different Asian countries, eating bugs is as normal as eating a cow for us. So how was that received for you here? And where do you see the market in Europe flourishing the most? In which European?
Yeah. So as I kind of touched on a bit earlier, we launched for the human market. We're now pivoting for the pet and animal feed market. And but before we pivoted just regarding human feed, because ultimately we don't just provide insect food. We don't provide insects as food. We provide the grown utensils. So it's like the next stage. It's almost when you think about how many people eat strawberries compared to how many people actually grow their own strawberries. So it's always a little bit harder to there's a few extra steps. But ultimately in the UK, it's always interesting talking to people. We have a very strong social presence. We've done in-depth user testing, and from all that research, it's ultimately it seems that a third of people who we talk to flat out just they're not interested. They're rejected. They're like go away. This is crazy. The other third of people are kind of they're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Not for me, but I don't like it. But I see the value of it. And the other third are like, wow, I see the value in this. I like it. I'll tell me more. So it's quite. As you kind of said, it's quite a visceral thing. Like people have quite strong emotions, especially when it comes to food, because food is quite cultural. Food takes, it doesn't change over years. It takes decades to really change kind of cultural perceptions. For example, lobsters back in the 1920s were called cockroaches of the sea. They were fed to prisoners in North America, and now they're fine dining. Similar to oysters, sushi when it came to Europe in the 80s, there was raw fish, no way. And now you can buy sushi anywhere in Europe. But yeah, so again, the food market was always more challenging. So one of the great things we learned early on last year was that our key assumption was to test seeing are people in the UK and Europe ready for growing pods to actually grow their own insects. And we ultimately found out that we're a bit too early with this. However, our second assumption was, well, is the pet market ready? And we found out that the pet market is really ready, because a lot of these pet owners who have, birds, fish, reptiles, amphibians, already feed them insects. And in many cases, already feed them live insects. So it's a very small step to say, hey, we're BeoBia. We want to give you the tools to create your own source of continuously free sustainable and nutritious pet feed that you can grow in your home. So this the market for the pet sector, especially in Western Europe, it's really thriving, and we're having really good results so far. And we're looking to, right now, we're currently in our first investment round. So hopefully we'll raise initial funds, and then we'll move and we'll scale the company, and we'll then hopefully move into mainland Europe in the next few years.
Wow, that is so exciting. Yes, no, I when I was young, I always had I had a lot of animals. I had snakes, I had hamsters, I had cows, chickens, mice, rats, everything you can imagine. And a lot of the rodents, I was feeding them actually with worms that I would buy in the shop, the worms that you feed actually when you fish. So the big harder ones, the long, hard, I don't know how you call them in English, but my hamsters, they loved it. So it makes totally sense that people would do it at home. So what do you think? You say you're raising funds now and you want to expand. How can people get in touch with you? You know, how can also research institute or partners actually listening to this as well? How do you work with other organizations? Because I'm sure, you know, we're not reinventing the wheel. There's other people as well already thinking about that. And some listening to this, specifically in the sustainability sector, will be like, we're doing that too, you know, how can we collaborate? How does that work for you? Has there been a lot of demand for that? Or is it just that people talk about sustainability and yet there's not much yet out there? How do you see the market?
Yeah, so we're, as I said, like an early stage startup. So we've only had I've only been working for on this for the past 18 months. So our collaborations has been relatively limited, but people reach out all the time. You know, with I have Zoom calls continuously with people in fields, collaborating, sharing experiences, sharing some data, talking about how we see the industry moving, the benefits, the drawbacks, or the pros and cons. So yeah, I think it's a very collaborative field. I'm always for example, a LinkedIn. A lot of people contact me through LinkedIn and also directly from our website at BeoBia.com. But yeah, it's people always reach out, and it's quite a it's an let's be honest, it's an early stage emerging market. So people get excited about this. So it's great to share and be collaborative. And in the past 12 months, we've collaborated with a few other startups in this field in the UK. But now we're looking to raise investment, expand this, and kind of continue to move conversations forward.
For the investment part, then you know that I have my own family office, and we as well invest in tech startups and so on. What is the return on investment then, if you would say, for example, in an investment for someone like me or someone like my colleagues who are listening to this? What is the take on it? Why would we invest in you?
Oh, fantastic. Then now turn into an investment pitch. I love it, Tessy.
We do everything on a Monday morning, everything.
Fantastic. I mean, ultimately, what we're doing at BeoBia, we've kind of tested our assumptions. We're now backed by, we have hundreds of beta testers. We're now looking to leverage that with our retailer interests. So we already have secure investment. We have a 5-year plan. Within that 5-year plan, we're looking to grow and scale. And within that, through the tail end of that, we're looking to probably also diversify into other markets, because ultimately insects as a source of protein for humans and animals, this market is growing. It's growing at an astounding rate, and it's going to be more and more important as this decade proceeds. So we'll be one of those startups in a really strong position to use our past experience to expand and explore future revenue streams. And actually, one of the most interesting ones that interests me is actually the humanitarian sector. I feel that insects can play a huge part in reducing protein insecurity for low and middle income countries. So ultimately, in a one line, it's we're in a growing space, and we want to be at the forefront of this.
Absolutely, no, that makes totally sense. And yes, thinking about the humanitarian sector, also disaster relief and, war zones, refugee camps, and so on. I think that could be a really good source. And as you say, not just, for humans, yes, but also for, a lot of them bring their pets and everything. And often in the humanitarian sector, when it comes to crisis management, the pets, we see it with homeless people, for example, pets are their only source of feeling of belonging, right? Often, and they can't feed their pets. So I think that is a really good idea to think of. I have not thought about it like that.
Thanks, and not only just for pets, but also for like small holdings. So if you have chickens, fish, you can produce insects from essentially your waste food and convert it into high quality livestock feed on a small scale. So small holdings all over the world could have growing pods that actually produce a continuous free supply of food they can use to feed their animals. So I think it has huge application. It's a growing hot space. It's just really exciting. But again, we're now looking to grow and scale in the pet sector, and future data will direct us where we go. But ultimately, I'm very confident that as this decade proceeds, these market segments will become more and more lucrative and also rewarding, monetarily speaking, but also ethically. I set up this company to do good for people, but also for the planet.
Exactly. No, and that is the forefront of what a lot of people are looking for, right? Do good while also have a good return, and also be different, right? Not always investing into the same things. Definitely diversify the portfolio a little bit. So very interesting. Mm-hmm. So as we are running out of time, there's a question I always ask my speakers. And of course, we will put your website below the video on YouTube, but also below the podcast channels, and maybe as well an email, so people can contact you for the more information and for the pitch deck for investors and so on. My question to you then, as it is a topic, I heard about it and I have been exposed to it, but what would you as an expert think for someone coming into the field? Like an interesting book, maybe a book for young people, or maybe a book for more mature people, something, where can we start to read about it that could give us a really good fundamental base on the topic?
A good book.
It's always a difficult question. I must.
Yeah. Well, a good book. Well, it's almost a book, but one of the things that really kind of swayed my thoughts on this was actually it's basically a book. It could be a book. It's that long, but it's a UN report on edible insects. It came out in 2013, and it's a very in-depth report. It talks about everything from the ethics to sustainability to culture all across the world, from eating insects for humans, but also for animals. And it's exceedingly interesting. So I'll probably say that's a great book or report that someone can start off reading. It's a report, so I think it's literally 100 or so pages long. It's quite an in-depth report, but it has a nice few intro pages at the start that you can get an overview with. So I'll definitely check out that report. It's I believe it's called the United Nations Insect 2013 report. Really fascinating. It's a really easy read. The intro is. I highly recommend that.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, we'll definitely put that link below as well. And it's funny though when you say the report of the UN from 2013. So that's a long time ago. It's so interesting that there's so many pressing topics out there that it's not possible to just keep it up to date. Because as you say, 2013, you were not even in the field yet, right? You started 2017. And I'm sure a lot has changed. So maybe even that, food for thought for you and for anyone listening here, maybe to do something with you and write a new research report in collaboration with the UN. Who knows? Food for thought, always good. So my dear Thomas, you are released from the chair of questioning for me for now. But thank you so much. This was really interesting, and it was a really good introduction to your company and to what you are trying to do. I wish you all the best. We keep in touch, and have a good rest of the day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Tessy. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. And for everyone else listening still, Please subscribe, comment, rate, and share, because only like that we will be able to grow this podcast to an even wider global audience for topics such as this one that are essential for us. And we need this innovation. We need new brains. We need young entrepreneurs such as Thomas to make this world a better place, one person at a time. So please do join us, and you can also become a patron to the podcast. All of these informations on my website, tessydenassau.com. Until we meet again, have a good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this Zoom O'Clock. We hope this discussion was insightful and has provoked some new ideas for you. Please share and subscribe. If you like to keep in touch with your host, you can find her on Instagram under Tessy_from_Luxembourg and on Twitter under Tessy_DE.